little bit of a disclaimer here. We had some audio issues during this podcast. We had my neighbor taking a shower through the thin walls, which sort of picked up, and we had someone drop from the call during this whole process. But after the half an hour mark, it's all good, and I did the best that I could up until then, so hopefully you guys enjoy. Welcome back to Everything in Between. I'm sitting here doing editing right now because the audio at the beginning of the episode was just terrible. But basically all I'm saying here is that this is my mom and introducing Journey as well, and that this episode is going to be more about mental health and the fact that I've already talked a lot already about myself, so I sort of just pass it on to Journey, and yeah, let's hear what she has to say.
It's a lot. So, I guess I kind of always saw mental health in my family, but we kind of just chalked it up with excuses. I don't know. We just always thought they were crazy. But I would say from a kind of young age, I was feeling depressed and like I didn't fit in and like I didn't belong and kids are assholes. But and I never, well, in school I didn't self-harm. I was a wimp with pain. But no matter how depressed I was, I always tried to do good, and I never let it pull me to like a dark side. I was never gonna be like a school shooter. Sorry, but I always tried to be good. I just hated myself, basically. And it wasn't even anything anyone said, because like I heard through a grapevine that people thought I was a lesbian because I had short hair in middle school. And I never even cared about that. I was always, worried about how I looked, not if people thought I was a fucking lesbian. I don't fucking care. So it was really only ever my thoughts that made me depressed. And I mean, I never really got into like drugs or anything, but I did once a year for a couple years go up for family vacation on Memorial Day weekend, and my mom and my aunts and uncles would let me drink under their supervision. Of course, it was drunken supervision, but it was supervision. And it was technically allowed as long as it's the parents providing the alcohol to their own children in Minnesota. There's some weird thing where like legally you can, to like a certain age, provide under supervision your child alcohol. Midwest man, am I right? Drunk teenagers. We could justify it. So I would always like. I never got drunk on my own. It was only during the supervised time, but I would always go overboard as much as I would push my limit. I would test my limits there, just to see how much I could get away with, because it felt awesome to be drunk at a young age. I just felt good, and I was talkative, and I was so those weekends, that weekend every year, I got excited for, and it was just good. But then I would just go back, and I would just be depressed with me. So eventually, I would say it was like 16, 17. I was just had enough of it. And I went crying to my mom, telling her I need help. Like, I'm depressed. Blah, blah, blah. And I was just crying because I didn't want her to be disappointed or ashamed. And she reassured me. She said, "No, no, 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 that would never happen. I just want you to be honest. If something's wrong, tell me." Um, so I went to a doctor. They diagnosed me with clinically depressed. I went on antidepressants and I went to see a therapist. I did not like my therapist. I immediately quit after one session. Was not for me. And it could have just been the person. Maybe we just didn't click, but I just did not like sitting there being asked questions about myself. I'm a private person unless I'm close to people. Like I'll openly talk about a subject, but not necessarily my experiences. Um, so quit therapy, and then antidepressants just made me feel empty. So I stopped them, and like I know there's probably people that would be like, well, you need to give them time. I gave them like a month, and I could have given it more time, but I felt worse on them than I did off of them. I stopped. Um, and then after that is when I moved to Arizona and got pretty hardcore into weed. Um, I really used it to numb myself. It was a dark time. As soon as I moved to Arizona and my parents left, I was very alone. I was entirely alone. I did not know anyone here. I knew one person. She lived in Surprise, and it was my mom's old friend um, from like teenage years, and they hadn't really seen each other since then. And no offense to her if she sees this somehow, but she's a little out there. But she lived an hour away. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a license. I don't know, really shouldn't have been driving. I think she told me like she had vision issues. Um, so I was entirely alone in a new apartment in a new state. Had no one. I was falling apart. I was just crying all the time. It got real dark. I was sorry, Michael. Sorry, Michael. I was just not having sex with, but hooking up with a bunch of people. Because I just did not, didn't care. I was free. My parents weren't there. I could do whatever I wanted without feeling like I was gonna get caught by my parents or that they were gonna you know what I mean, find out. So I was doing that, but I was just really fucking depressed all the time. And then met my roommate and got really hardcore into weed. And then it was a weird friends with benefits type of thing, well, roommates with benefits type of thing. Um, and that's when I first self harmed, was when living with my roommate, because the situation was really, really bad, really toxic and bad. um,
What did you do?
what do you mean?
Self-harm.
Oh, I would hit my thighs. I would bruise them. I was too too pussy to cut myself. No, that's not saying like you're strong to cut yourself, but like I couldn't do the pain, so I just bruised because bruising it hurts, but then it kind of doesn't hurt, and it's just kind of like numb. And then obviously it hurts later once it actually bruises. Found that out the hard way, just how bad it hurt. But so it was a really rough time. I was crying a lot. I was self-harming. I was doing drugs, all drugs, not all drugs. I only ever really did weed, and I tried cocaine once. Sorry, if anyone in my family who sees this. But I was using it to numb myself. I was getting angry a lot, and this was still when I was on my implant birth control, and I do think that played a part in it. So that was happening, and then something snapped, and then I started hooking up with other guys. And then I met Michael. He was nice. He liked me. Uh, we obviously moved pretty quickly, as Vicky knows. Moved in pretty quick with each other. But here we are, 5.5 years later. What an investment. um, but so after I met Michael, I did get the Nexplanon, the implant out, and I started on a different form of birth control. And it was tough because I'd already been experiencing such extreme emotions, and I didn't know why, and I thought it was just my roommate situation, but I was with Michael and I was still getting triggered. I was still getting angry a lot. And I just then chalked it up to, well, Michael's just an asshole, like my roommate. Not as bad because you're not doing things to like hurt me, but you're an asshole. Like, so my brain was just chalking it up to that, and I was just getting triggered, and we were fighting a lot, and I just chalked it up to you being an asshole. Come to find out now, I finally went to see a psychiatrist because something was definitely wrong. It had just never, and we were in a good place, and I was still getting triggered and angry. Finally, I saw a psychiatrist this year. What is it? Borderline personality. Oh, I forgot to mention, I was also diagnosed with mild OCD when I was also diagnosed with depression. And now I have also been diagnosed with anxiety. So I am just stacking them up. But I was diagnosed with borderline and anxiety. Um, I am still weird about therapy, so I've tried to look, but it's also hard to find a fucking therapist because I have like 2, 3 different insurances, so they kind of all have to work together. Um, so I just went right onto a drug. What's it called? Seroquel? But the generic version, and it worked, and then I tried a different one for weight issues to see if we could have a weight neutral. Oh, I guess I should mention I was also at the same time diagnosed with endometriosis by a different doctor, like exact same time. So, we had tried switching my birth control. It hadn't
For
worked. The
those who don't
pain.
know, what is endometriosis?
Oh, endometriosis is where the aligning of my uterus grows outside of my uterus. And it basically just it worsens cramps. It just grows on other organs, and it just causes more pain. But so I was diagnosed with that at the same time. We had tried switching my birth control, and then we decided if I wanted to do the surgery, and also if you weigh more and have endometriosis, you store more estrogen in your body, and that can make it worse. So we had decided to try to put me on a keto diet to try and rapidly lose weight if I wanted to get the surgery. And so my psychiatrist placed me on a weight neutral drug, lamotrigine. I tried it. It was full, and I realized just how well Seroquel was working because all of a sudden I was getting angry again. Me and Michael were fighting again. And it hadn't been that way since I had started Seroquel. So immediately we were like, okay, this is bad. And I still had leftover Seroquel, so I just stopped the lamotrigine and just went on Seroquel myself because it was before I had met with my psychiatrist again. And we agreed I was much better on Seroquel, so he ordered me more. And then he started me on sertraline, which is an antidepressant. And so far, I feel like it's been working. It can take a while to for you to fully feel it, but I definitely feel less sad in a way. But that's where I am right now. My stuff is under control, so I feel like I can control it more and I can process it better. So I don't feel as out of control. Just feel more in control with the drugs. So if you're listening to this, drugs are not necessarily the answer, but they can be really, really good because once you're on them and you realize what things are out of control, oh my god. It is crazy. It's just crazy to feel somewhat normal. But that's where I am in life.
Before I pass it to Mom, I had a couple questions for you, and maybe Mom did too, but were you bullied as a kid?
No.
Okay.
Well, not so much bullied. There were like dumb boys who would be like teasing assholes, but never like bullied. I didn't have a bully.
And with, you're on Seroquel right now, currently, how would you describe your mental health? Like, are you, losing your shit more, or maybe a little more depressed, or has things started to even out, gotten easier, or where is it right now?
Things have evened out. I do still get like times where it doesn't work, and I do get triggered, and I do get like super angry or super out of control. And there are times when I dip and I still feel depressed, but it's definitely more evened out, and I definitely feel more just like level. I can feel things normally.
Me and you have talked a lot about depression, and there are times where it's hard for me to understand because, sometimes it's a real physical thing that you're upset about, but there are other times where I've talked to you and, I'm trying to figure out what is wrong, what's happening, and sometimes you just tell me it's my depression, and the way it's been described is, nothing could really be wrong. Like, nothing physical or is actually happening. You're just sad because you're sad. I don't know if you have anything to say on that, or maybe the differences between the two.
Now that I feel more under control and like I can feel normally, it's probably more likely that something triggered me and I didn't realize it triggered me and it just made me super depressed. Like, and it could be anything. It could be a word. It could be like, red heels. Maybe I think back to it. Like any word could trigger me, and I just am all of a sudden thinking about whatever situation or whatever that brought to my head, and I'm just spiraling. And I just in that moment may just not have realized what triggered me or why it triggered me. So now I feel more under control. I can realize that things did trigger my depression. It wasn't just I just randomly thought I hated myself. It's more of something triggered me, and there's all the reasons I fucking hate myself now. So I think that's more likely of what happened, not just I was randomly sad. I think there are times where I just randomly felt sad, like all of a sudden I just felt like, but I would describe it more as like drained. Like I just need to recharge. I just need to do something and recharge. I'm just so.
There are a lot of levels with pain. I know that, something that I might be able to handle easily might be devastating to someone else. I know we've talked about, the example of you being upset over something you don't even know why you're upset. You're just upset versus like, someone cheated on you or like a real thing. But we had a conversation about, if I had my arm chopped off versus if I thought my arm was chopped off. So like physically, obviously not having an arm would be worse in that sort of scenario, but the idea that you've mentally convinced yourself that your arm is chopped off and you're feeling the pain even though that hasn't happened, it might not be equally as bad because you still have your arm, but that's still a extreme, I don't know, pain. It's not quite equivalent, but it's pretty bad if you think you're, but you said you're not really into therapy yet. And I do think that there's a difference. Sorry, 1 second, guys. What's going on? Oh, you left the call. Journey, you're not in the call.
I'm not.
I don't know if any of that got recorded.
No, she was there. She just because I've been watching, so I don't know how long ago she left the hall, but it hasn't been
I
that
can
long.
stop it and restart it. Well, what if we missed everything? Your entire story?
I saw myself.
It just it didn't
Okay.
happen that
Hello?
long ago.
It just happened?
I don't know how long ago, but she was there, and then
Talking for a while. So.
Should we stop it and figure it out? Okay, guys, something happened. There was a little bit of technical difficulties. I don't know where we lost it, but we're all back on the call now. I'm just gonna repeat what I just said. You said that you weren't very into therapy or talking, about your problems or being open about them, and I know I've tried to push you to do that with me. Do you think, obviously not everyone can afford therapy, but do you think being open and about your problems has ever helped you in any way, or it's just
I guess in a way you could say that. I'm trying to think. It helps in a way that it lets other people know why I act the way I act. And to help them try to explain so maybe they can help me figure shit out. But I guess in a way it does help in putting your thoughts out there, and then maybe something clicks while you're putting your thoughts out there and you're saying them out loud. Now you aren't just thinking them in your head, you're saying them out loud, you're hearing your thoughts spoken, and then maybe something will click and you'll figure out, oh, well shit, maybe that's why I've acted that way, maybe that's why I've thought that before. So I would say it does. I would just say do it however you're comfortable, like in a way that you're comfortable. Because like if you don't want to see a therapist, like someone that you don't know that you're paying and you can't afford it, don't worry about it. Just maybe join a forum or join a support group
talk to a friend?
or talk to a friend or I don't know, go on Meet Me or Kick and find some random person who will listen to you. Vent to a stranger that you don't have to
You
pay.
mentioned hurting yourself, and you said you couldn't cut yourself or whatever, and maybe
Yeah.
that didn't last a very long time. I know that you don't currently do that anymore, at least not
Mhm.
that I know of. And for people listening who maybe are currently hurting themselves or thinking about hurting themselves, does it work? In the moment, it could relieve some, uh, pain
Yeah.
immediately. But all that really is, like, I talked, I think maybe a few episodes ago about, my anxiety and headaches that I was having, and then I kind of crashed my bike, and the moment I got a cut on my leg, I just felt immediately better, and I was happy. All that is, and really how I ended up curing my anxiety, at least for the most part, it's just a distraction. Whatever you're feeling, sad, obviously not, you don't want to distract yourself from happy, but if you're sad, mad, or just in pain in general, even if it's like emotional or physical, a little distraction somewhere else. But you don't necessarily have to do that in a harmful way. Like, you can distract yourself in positive ways. So the ultimate goal would be to find things that work that are not harmful.
Yeah, rip up paper. Go stab a notebook.
Well, it'll be whatever.
Well, I just mean like, cause I mean, I guess maybe don't stab if you have homicidal tendencies, but cause we had like an old mattress and I stabbed that a few times. It felt bad. There was a big situation and I was stabbing for a reason, but scribble on a fucking piece of paper. Scribble till you tear through pages. I don't know.
There are probably a million activities.
I'm sure there's others. Go play racquetball. Go play soccer.
You just gotta find whatever it is you're good at. And I had one more question for you before I
Yeah.
have Mom just take the floor completely, hopefully.
Oh God.
The future, like,
Mhm.
does it look good?
Yeah. Looks better than I've thought it would in a while.
Is there a plan in place? Is there just
Michael, you are my fiance.
No, I'm not the only person. Hopefully, I just I.
We have a plan.
All right, what's the plan, dude?
What do you mean?
I don't know.
You don't want to share a plan?
Well, I just mean as far as your mental health is concerned,
Oh.
like
Well, I'm gonna keep taking the drug
keep taking drugs.
for sure.
Drugs.
Absolutely. Sorry, medication.
Medication.
I don't know. Continue. Prescribed drugs.
But you're
Um,
optimistic looking for me.
Yeah. I'm slowly getting back to where I feel like myself and figuring out what I am happy to and what makes me happy and how to implement that. Looks good.
Well, with all of that being said, Mom, if there's anything you
Well,
I had a couple things I wanted to ask Journey. One of them being, when did you first drink alcohol?
It would have been early teens, maybe. Because I'm trying to think of how many times we went. Maybe 13, 14. And Midwest people are known for drinking. And it was under adult super. I never drank.
No, I get it.
Yeah. Obviously, again, it was drunken supervision. Yeah.
I also wanted to say that when I was listening to you, because obviously I'm a much older than both of you.
Right.
Yes, I get it. When I was y'all's age.
are we picking her up?
Yeah, I
Move
think
it on the
so.
other side of the
Anyway, when I was
No, I
y'all's,
just don't see the bar.
when I was y'all's age,
She's just quiet.
well, the age you are,
Mhm.
Journey, there was no way. I was messing with my mic.
Alright, we gotta fix this real quick.
There was no way I was even thinking about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
There was no such thing as mental health. You dealt with whatever came in your path, and that was that. And if you brought anything about mental health or therapists or psychiatrists or any such thing like that up,
Mm-hmm.
it was very frowned upon.
Yeah.
And so there was none of that. I never I was never a confident person.
Mm-hmm.
So having that kind of a support
Mm-hmm.
or opportunity
Mm-hmm.
would have been a blessing for my generation.
Oh,
But it
yeah.
wasn't an option for us. So it's really nice to see it now.
Yeah.
It is really nice to see it now. For myself, I've been diagnosed with so many things. It's ridiculous, and probably half of them are probably true. The other half are whatever. I've got the ADHD, the borderline bipolar, OCDs, and unspecified mood disorder, and well, the one that really sticks is the complex PTSD. It makes sense because there's been a lot of trauma. So it does make sense. And I'm working with a therapist right now. I don't take any medications, mostly because I have a lot of anxieties about medications, like Mike. I know they do work though, because when I take them, I do feel better. Pretty silly. But then I get nervous about the fact that I'm taking them, and I don't know, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I am working with a therapist. I do have self-esteem issues. I do have confidence issues. I do worry all the time. But I don't know if you guys have questions. That's fine. I don't know.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When did you first realize you had issues, or when did you first start realizing you need help with the issue?
Oh, that's pretty funny. I think the first time that I actually realized that I might have a problem was actually when I took Michael to see a therapist. And he was probably 3.5 years old. And I really did not know what to do with this 3.5-year-old who was bouncing off the walls. I did not know what to do. He was very aggressive, and I just didn't know. I didn't know. I have an older son. I seem to do a really good job with him. And then here's Michael, and I didn't seem to know how to get him to just sit for a second. He was just never sitting still. And I just didn't know what to do. I mean, he was quite aggressive, and I didn't know what to do. So I did seek help. And when I took him in, the doctor, psychiatrist, children's psychiatrist, who I saw, she did a psych eval on him and diagnosed me. And I was like, what? And so at that point I thought, maybe there's something to this. So yeah, that's when I realized that there might just be something going on with me. Before that, no, I had no idea. No idea. I thought I was perfect.
So you talked about self-conscious issues and PTSD. Well, obviously I can't mention all the things because there's so many, just like with me, but is there a plan that you have? Like, there's therapy and there's meds you're taking, but do you have a plan that you're doing in the future that you think is a good one, or, working for you?
Well, right now.
Yeah. I guess I gotta lean forward. Right now I'm working on I have a very difficult time asserting myself. It's like, even right now, just talking about asserting myself is very difficult for me to say because, I'm not very good at that. Yeah, I'm not very assertive. I don't like confrontations, and when it comes to stuff like that, I tend to just be like, all right, do what you want, because I'd rather not fight. I'm not a fighter, so I'll move aside, and that's really no way to live. And so finding my voice, being able to express my views without stumbling like I'm doing right now, which is uncomfortable because I know I don't sound very smooth or um, comfortable. I don't sound very comfortable. I sound like I am struggling, and I, in fact, am struggling because these are subjects that are difficult for me to talk about.
It's funny. I mean, I smiled as soon as you said that because I don't know if it was 2 episodes ago, but I was tripping all over my words and myself and what I wanted to say. And I remember saying I probably don't sound cool or smart or funny, but this is, for me, is supposed to be just a raw conversation of whatever my thoughts are, and maybe I'm just stupid at the moment, and that's okay. You mentioned that you hate confrontation, and I think I say this all the time, but there's a lot of people that can't accept fault or responsibility. So I imagine that anytime you had an experience with confrontation, you were probably dealing with unreasonable people that potentially would get emotional or negatively emotional very quickly. So the idea of confrontation is just, you're not really dealing with reasonable people, so you never have had a positive outcome with having a confrontation. That being said, I love confrontation.
I know.
Because I love resolution. You might have a negative thought in your head, you're walking around, no one knows what it is, but you're not doing that great. And if there was an environment created where you could let that out, and you may have a bad thought or a negative thought, maybe even about the person you're letting it out to, but as long as that's done in a nice, loving, respectful way, really, I think the idea that you don't like confrontation is more so the people you've had confrontations with, and that you've probably had them with unreasonable people. But you have to be able to get your thoughts out and your feelings out, because if you keep them in, then they're just going to eat you alive. But it's been really hard for me, because you sort of have to choose. I think I have 75 Facebook friends, and not to say that Facebook is whatever, but I don't really go out that much, so the people that I'm connected to, the majority of them would be among those 75 people on Facebook, and I know that number was closer to 200 or 300 when I first made a Facebook, but I've sort of had to choose, do I want 1,000 pennies, or do I want, $5? Like, there's a lot of, hey, how are you relationships, and, if it ever gotten much deeper than that, a lot of the time, you sort of get to see people's true colors, and sadly, the majority of the time, most people don't really fit together, and you sort of clash, and, it's hard to make new friends and to find those positive experiences, especially when things get confrontational. But if I had another question to ask you, the only question I've written down thus far that's left is, are you happy?
I'm getting there. I am learning to prioritize myself, and that, I think, is the biggest lesson that I'm taking from my therapy, is I have prioritized other people above myself most of my life, and made relationships outside of my relationship to myself more important, and what other people thought of me, and creating happiness for other people. And I made that so much more important than even taking care of my own daily needs, that I didn't even realize how to be happy, or what it was that I wanted, to the point where if someone asked me what I wanted, I really didn't have an answer. Like, and even right now, I'm at a loss most days with what do you want? And it's like, gosh, I don't know. But there's so many things I could choose from. And my goals right now are to discover what those things are that I do want, what's going to make me happy, and to actually go for them. So yeah, I am happy that I'm thinking differently and I'm letting go of worrying about what everyone else wants and focusing on me and what's going to be good for my health and my mental well-being. Because at the end of the day, that's really my job.
You go ahead.
I just, if there's one thing that you've learned, like since you've started therapy and started working on yourself, if there's one thing that you could pick that you would tell like your old, like your past self, to, so that maybe your life would have, like your life could be like maybe there's something you would have like learned earlier that could have helped you sooner.
You just can't make everybody happy. You just can't do it. You can't.
Yeah.
You have to take care of yourself and do the best you can to be a good person. But not everybody's going to like you. And it's okay. As long as when you look in the mirror, you like the person that's looking back. And if that person, then you're all right. If you can like the person looking back, you're all right.
You know, I just crossed out, you got to take care of yourself, because you just said it, but I was going to ask both of you, what do you think's the biggest obstacle in your way? And I was going to hope that that would be, the answer would be myself, because you can't really control other people or how they react. Everyone's got their own things, and here we are again, where I thought I had a thought, and I thought I was about to talk for a little bit of time, but I lost it, because I'm not perfect, but...
Well, Michael, question for you, because you said you've had a lot of diagnoses. Are there any you think are still true? Because obviously I know that there's some that you think that was bull.
Well, I was diagnosed with everything, let's just say,
For time's sake,
yeah,
everything.
but, I mean, the only one I think I would have, would be anxiety, but I think, you know, obviously I wasn't leaving my house, and I've surpassed that. You know, even though I say I like confrontation, I still get nervous. Like, my heart shakes, my voice cracks. I think of myself as less, for the most part, physical, you know, wealth and health, you know, sodas and cigarettes, and but the only place where I have any sort of confidence is my thought of my ability to try to be as good as I possibly can, try to be understanding as I possibly can. I've said several times that my worst enemy is totally allowed to come over and have dinner with me. I don't have hate in my heart, and if it ever gets to my heart, I have so many experiences with people that have wronged me and never, like, it would be, it's really hard for people to admit fault, even when it's like clear, and even if I'm like offering all the forgiveness in the world, like making it super easy, and like there's no real consequences for like saying, you know, my bad, or just the easiest thing, but some people just can't even go that inch. They have to absolutely look perfect forever. So if I don't care who it is and for what, unless you murder someone or, you know, something that just I've never experienced. No one's ever murdered any of my family members, but 99.9% of the time, I'm just gonna forgive you, just because I value the strength of being open and honest and vulnerable, and admitting to yourself and to me that you're not perfect. Nobody is.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah. But I try to go into conversations, obviously I think I know I'm right, because everything I've ever thought, I've come to some conclusions, but I try to really, I don't so much care what someone thinks as I do why they think it, and I really try to get to the core of their thoughts and beliefs, and I try to do that without emotion. So I don't see, I've looked up the word psychopath quite a few times, and I'm not there,
No, you're not a psychopath.
because I've watched dog videos,
You're not a psychopath.
or soldiers coming home videos that make me cry happy tears. I've also watched movies and videos that can make me cry sad. I feel fear and scared, and sometimes I get mad for a second. But I think there are times where I can turn emotion off, especially if I'm in a confrontation if someone's yelling or screaming at me. I recognize that most people in my scenario this would maybe be too much for them, and they would leave, or they would yell back, or they would, whatever, but I sort of just
Freeze and cry.
I sort of just become a robot. And I think the first time I ever experienced shutting off emotion was going to jail, because it was just a big wake-up call where, like, I have no more control, and, if my goal is to leave this place, well, I can't be freaking out like all these kids, starting fights, cussing. I'm just going to do everything that I'm told. I'm going to be as perfect as I possibly can be. And I learned that at 15.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a hate for anger. Maybe, I know I've never liked being yelled at. I think that's like the worst thing for me.
It's funny that you said that, because when you were little, you would come home so upset because the teacher yelled at you. And the teacher would swear up and down that she never yelled at you. She was just trying to tell you to do something. And in your mind, she was just yelling at you. And it was just like,
Yeah.
And I'm like,
There seems to be a pattern with Michael not liking authority.
yeah. And I'm like, I don't know if she yelled at you or not, but
There could be some truth to me not liking authority, but there have absolutely been times where I've just been...
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying, dude, it was like, this was back at Scales when you were 9, and you changed schools, and that was just not good, and I had to drag you into school every day carrying your shoes, and you did not like it there, and that teacher was mean, and I was like, this was the sweetest teacher, but she would yell at you, and I'm like,
I
looking
remember
at her.
an evilness coming from that teacher. An evil
You swore up and down that she was the most evil, wretched thing in the world, and I'm looking at her like, okay.
Can't judge a book by its cover.
No, I know. I mean, you're my kid. I'm like, gotta be true. But
let's not go
he
that
didn't look
way.
it.
Um,
I'm just saying, you hate that any type of. Well, I think it was more that she was negative. You know what I mean? And it perceived as a yelling. Even though, her voice may not have been of a yell level. Does that make sense? But it came off in a very negative way. So it came across as a yell to you.
well, I may have deep issues with authority stuff, but 20 years later,
You still have a problem with authority.
I like solving problems. I like happy. and good. And, you know, I think, again, we talked about how having your arm cut off and, you know, thinking your arm's cut off is not the same, but thinking, you know, these thoughts, the brain is a powerful thing. If you think you're going to die versus, like, let's say you're lying on your deathbed.
Yeah.
And you think you're about to die, you have cancer, you have a few days to live, whatever. Versus, you know, you think all these things, versus it actually being the case we're in a hospital bed versus someone like me lying in bed thinking that's, like, it's the same.
Thinking you have
No,
cancer.
it's
The
the
same
same.
experience as far as mentally.
Yeah. Well, I would say not necessarily. Well,
I mean,
in the
it's
sense of
obviously worse the
when
other
you're
way
told
around.
you're gonna die, you panic, but then you also kind of have to come to terms.
Right.
Whereas if you think you're gonna die, you're just scared of when you're gonna
And
die.
you never
When
really have to come to terms because it doesn't
Mental,
Yeah.
the mental fear
the fear, yeah,
is-
happen.
is,
yeah.
But
you know, there's no way to tell. I mean, you can't really look at it and say, okay, this is just not as real
Oh yeah, no.
as this, because
I'm just saying, it would be slightly, because one, you would have to come to terms with it. The other, well, I guess you could either mentally just come to terms with maybe you will die, or you're just constantly going to be in that state of,
yeah.
I think I'm dying. When it's going to
Well,
happen?
that's kind
sometime.
of what I was saying with
Yeah.
the teacher, because in Michael's mind, that teacher was 100% yelling at him. He was 100%. That is what was happening, regardless of whether it was truly the teacher was truly yelling at him. He was being yelled at every single day by that teacher.
Mhm.
I think when I was having my thoughts of I'm gonna die,
Mhm.
so much, I don't know, maybe horrible things have happened to everybody. But I just try to make good as much as I can. And obviously, maybe I'll do something stupid and say the wrong thing, and piss someone off, and they're rightfully mad at me. But my issue with anger is it's not a solution. It's, you know, maybe for some people it feels good or it's some sort of release. But if I get into an argument with someone or just something happens and they get angry, it just sucks. I know in therapy, at least, like, you know, you're talking to your therapist, maybe you're talking to them about a problem and you use the word I'm crazy, and most of them are going to say, well, we don't use that word here, we don't like that word. And what they're trying to do is help you with your problems, or help the solution, or help whatever the problem with positivity and, you know, a positive mindset. And you can never really get that when you're yelling and screaming at someone. What I'm saying is, like, a lot of people, when they have their disagreements, they're trying to be as cutthroat as humanly possible and as fast as they can. Like, you're never going to convince someone something different if you say, yeah, well, you're just an idiot. You know, people want to think that they're good and right, and you have to sort of create a environment of positivity. And, you know, it is manipulation. I talked to my first therapist of recent about manipulation and how most people in her class, when she was going to school for becoming a therapist or whatever, everyone in there said they hated that. I hate that word, manipulation or whatever. And she was one of the only ones who were. So my example of how manipulation could possibly be a good thing is if there's a fucking killer, there's a dude with a gun, you know, holding everybody hostage or whatever. If you manipulate him into not doing that, well, that's a good thing. Manipulation can be used for good. So I know I'm saying I want to create this positive environment and maybe trick them into, well, that could be a good thing. Like, I'm not being an evil person by saying these things. But when anger's on the table and there's yelling and screaming, it doesn't help anyone.
I would say a good tactic, and it just popped into my head, and is also maybe to ask, just like stop the conversation and ask why they're upset. Ask, okay, well, what's the reason? So we can continue this topic if you'd like, but I want to know why you're upset. Why are you now angry at me or whatever? Like, did I say something that, upset you?
Well, it's sad for the most part because most people, once they're in an angry mode or mood, it's so hard to get them out of that. Even if you've solved whatever problem it is, they're still upset and they need time to calm down. The thing with me, and I don't know if that's it, that's why I keep looking up the word psychopath, because if I'm upset, it's only for a second, and if whatever I'm not feeling that great about is resolved, then my emotions are resolved instantly with that. And a lot of people aren't like that. They have to have time to cool down. So I run into situations where maybe I have a confrontation with someone, we solve it, I'm now good and want to continue with a positive experience with that person. They still need time. So I bump heads with people a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, but that is an important thing to realize, is that some people do need a cool down period, and some people also, because I'm learning about it too, just better soothing tactics on how to soothe yourself and to process the information correctly so that you can then move forward and not be in that state anymore.
Part of the thing with me in confrontation is that I freeze. And especially if I'm caught off guard, I get tongue-tied. I immediately have a million thoughts going through my head. I have all kinds of reactions that I want to have, but I am not able to make words come out of my mouth, so I can't say the things that I want to say. So I just freeze, and I'm standing there with my eyes wide open and my mouth not working, and I can't physically move. So it becomes extremely difficult for me to verbalize anything. That's part of the PTSD. And then when the other person is through venting or yelling or having their emotions, and they become, a lot of times, for me, they realize that I'm standing there looking absolutely ridiculous, and I become a target for that. And it escalates from there and becomes more personal to what is going on with me physically, and that escalates the physical reaction that I'm having, making it even more difficult for me to communicate what it is that I'm trying to say, and this just makes it even harder for me to voice. And so once I have, the situation has calmed down and I'm able to communicate what I'm, the other person is over it or whatever, and they're just like, and it's like, so I'm supposed to just get over it on my own. And that's how it usually goes down, And so I normally just kind of stuff everything. And that's not healthy.
I know everyone at this table is very passive. You could argue that I'm not, but very. I want to go about this the right.
That's how I do it.
I want to go about this the right way. Be the bigger person. Try to find resolution. And I think the reason why I asked you, Journey, did anyone bully you, is for some reason there's a stereotype of if you have a lot of mental health stuff going on, well, you're probably also bullied. And I think that that's because bullies tend to look for the weak kid, because they can get away with it. There's also the saying of like, a bully is just bullying you because they hate themselves, or they don't, there's something about themselves that they're taking out on you. And I've also noticed with me, like, I like who I am. I like knowing that I'm always going to try to find a resolution and solve rather than destroy, make things better, good. I'm very comfortable with who I am and what I think and believe, and if someone gives me the chance, I will love them like anyone. If they just, I don't know. I don't want to say the word offer because I think that's the wrong word. But if they give me an inch of the potential to love them, I'll give them a mile. That sounded so stupid. But what I'm saying is, I only want good and love and kindness and see, there I go again. I'm not perfect. I lost my thought. I'm trying to say that. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Someone else. I'll remember it eventually.
I mean, just thinking of the bully the weak kid. I mean, I never really. I was always scared of people's inner thoughts, not necessarily what they said to my face. Because if whatever they said to my face, I was like, oh, well, whatever, they're just being assholes. I don't give a fuck what they think. But I was always terrified of what they're actually thinking. Like, what are they telling their friends behind my back? What are they saying about me, not what are they saying to me? But I was also always the type of person who, if anyone said anything rude to me, I either fought back or I just ignored them and didn't care, and I didn't give them anything because I didn't care. It's like, okay, well then fuck you. If you're gonna be an asshole to me, then I'll just be an asshole back. You're not gonna affect me with this bullshit, especially if I know it's not true. But I'm always terrified of, oh, well, they're probably thinking this about me because this is true and this is such a bad thing, and everyone's probably focused on that. And no, so I don't necessarily. So I think it's more not necessarily weak people, but people who just let people get to them. You can kind of pick those people out, the people who are gonna take what you say to them personally, and let it affect them. Not necessarily people who just brush it off and or whatever about it.
Also, bullies aren't going for the biggest kid. Like, they're not going to bully someone they can't get away with it. I think why I lost it is I was really saying that, because they go for the weak kid or the kid who's gonna let them get away with it or whatever, the fact that most of the time there's something they don't like about themselves, and they're taking that out on you. In reality, they're sort of the weak ones, and they're not happy. Like,
right.
And most of them have this idea of not being open and honest about their feelings. Like, feelings are weak, and I think the exact opposite. Like, if you're only going for the weak kids, if you're only, like, you're sort of protecting yourself in that way. Like,
right.
You're not, there's no real danger or bravery there. But if you're open and honest with people, especially about your feelings, especially when you're not in the right, if you allow yourself to show people your imperfections, that is one of the strongest thing you can do. I've thought about this before as like going into battle, and you can go into battle with a fully armored with a tank or whatever, and you're probably pretty protected. But the guy who runs out in the field naked with a stick, he probably looks pretty fucking crazy and stupid, but that guy is 10 times braver than the guy camping in the corner with a shotgun if you play video games. This might be a little, I don't know what the right word is, deer in the headlights for both of you. But I know, like, I've talked about Journey's depression and Mom's anxiety. Um, Obviously, I can't list everything wrong with either one of you because we have lists. So sorry if that's not your favorite category of what's wrong with you. But I know that for me, I'm the type of person who gets into confrontations with people.
Oh.
I was wondering if either one of you or both of you could talk about potentially, if you want to, your experiences with getting into fights with me and maybe how I could improve, what you don't like about it. Anything you'd like to talk about, because I know I argue with both of you quite a bit.
Empathy. That's my hot empathy. You expect people or want people to think exactly like you and to have the same mindset and the same process of thinking as you, and that's not the case. And if you got your way, you'd probably be pretty bored, and I don't think that you would like if we acted exactly how you do and think exactly like you do and talk how you do, and you always think you know best, even if someone tells you this is what's best for me, you're like, well, that's not what's best for reality. For normal brains, that's not good. That's how. So, empathy and consideration.
Am I rude to you, Mama? Do I get a little mean on you?
Times. I think the biggest thing with you is you tend to think that you know more than I do. And at times you forget the fact that I've kind of been around a while and do know a few things that come from life experience and being around for a long time and living through a lot of stuff. And so sometimes when you're like, say, that you know more than me, it kind of discredits the fact that I do have a lot of experience in life.
On that,
It's funny that you were writing down notes to try to address our critique.
well, again, with the notes thing, the original reason for writing the notes, and Mom hasn't written any, which is fine, is that I could go on a long spiel.
Oh,
Anyone
yeah,
could go on a
yeah,
long
that's
spiel.
True, that's true.
And, they might make 20 points within their 5-minute
Right.
spiel. And I don't want to lose any important thought that they
Right.
say, so I make sure I write it down just in case a half an hour later
Yeah.
I don't lose what I had to say.
Right.
But Journey,
Yeah.
you mentioned that I want everyone to think like me or be like me or do like me, and you're correct. If everyone was exactly the same, as we've keep mentioning The Good Place, if everybody
It's a
had
good show.
if everybody had what they wanted and was happy all the time, happiness would sort of lose its value. And I do think, obviously, if everyone was like me, the world would be pretty boring.
Yeah. Not that you're born.
Yeah, but
No one. There would be no individuality.
yeah. So I don't think it's so much that I don't really care if people think differently than me. It's, for the most part, I like getting to the end of the road, and a lot of the time it's very uncomfortable for people to get through all of my thoughts and all of your thoughts and come at, like, if it's a controversial topic or, you know, an emotional topic, it's hard to get through all of your thoughts, all of my thoughts, and maintain a positive situation that entire time. If that's done successfully and you disagree with me at the end of it, I think I can walk away with that completely fine. It's just very hard to get through all of that. So when I say, if I'm hinting at you should be more like me, I'm talking about just emotional composure of, like, here's the ultimate truth for me. I don't have very many friends. I value relationships and love and people more than any other thing that exists, more than physical things, money, myself, whatever.
More than truth.
Maybe not. But the truth
I'm just wondering.
is that I value you two at this table more than anyone in the entire world, and Taylor would fall not much further away from that, but there's not many people that I feel that I could say whatever I wanted to. There's no one I feel that I can be my complete self with in this world besides you two. And when we reach points in our conversations where I feel like I can't say how I feel or what I think, and I get a negative response or the idea that potentially I'm against you or I'm being perceived as, you know, not being on your side, it really bothers me because of how much I absolutely love both of you and am always on your side and just want to express myself because I really want you both to understand all of me, because you guys are the only people that I really care to say that to. And, you know, I talked about having a 75 friend list or whatever, and how I had to decrease a lot of people in my life just because I can't have more than a hey, how are you conversation. It's never real. And since you two are the most real relationships I have in my life, I hold both of you to a way higher value of importance and just everything. You guys are held up here because of how important you are to me, because of how much I trust you. And there's probably a thing. I know there's plenty of people that are suffering from mental health, and potentially they don't show it at their workplace or at their school, and people think they're really nice and cool, but at home, when they go home, they beat their wife and they scream at their kids or whatever. All of this is in home, and, you know, that is wrong, but it's also they feel more comfortable with the people they're closest to. And that's not to say that I'm yelling and screaming at you guys, because I'm definitely not. But I am being as open and honest as I possibly can, and sometimes that could come across as not good. But ultimately, I always have both of your backs, and there's nothing you can do besides, I don't know, cutting the cord, whatever, getting rid of me, that I would ever want to change that. And as far as what you said, Mom, you said that you're older than me, and I've always hated that thing. Respect your elders.
It's not about
No,
that.
I understand. Well, you mentioned that you're older than me and that you may know more things about certain things, and that's obviously, that has to be true. On that, I've always hated the idea of respect your elders, and I'm not saying this is you, but I am saying there are people out there who maybe punish their kids and they say, just don't do it because I said so. And, you know, the kid is going the kid is not going to understand why it is that they're not doing it or not supposed to do it. They just know they're not allowed to, and they may be more likely to rebel against something they don't understand if they just think their person in power is just being tyrannical and just power hungry. And you know, I like reasons for things, and because, you know, I'm sure there are plenty of people in everyone listening and everyone here at this table's life that has someone that they know that are older than them, that they know more about a certain subject than they do, you know. I'm sure, Mom, you know someone older than you who you maybe think you might be a little bit more intelligent than in certain subjects. I say this all the time. Journey is an audio engineer, and if me and Journey were talking about audio engineering, I would know nothing of the subject, and I would probably stay very silent.
We're not talking about
No, I
auto
know.
engineering.
I understand that, but when I'm talking to you, Mom, when certain subjects pop up, I do feel that I have more information and try to disclose my information to you as best as possible. And most of the time, we do talk about subjects that are confrontational, emotional, and again, it's very hard to get through those types of conversations fully without emotion, because if you have this thing that you think that you feel strongly about and I think something different and I also feel strongly about it, well, it's really hard to get through that conversation.
Thing is that most of the time when this situation comes up, it'll be, I will suggest something and you don't take my advice, and I'm kind of disillusioned by that, because a lot of times I've been through this similar situation already in my life and had an outcome. And so I know from my own personal experience. And yet, because right now in my life, I happen to be going through a difficult time because of mental issues, I'm not communicating well at times, especially when you and I are in a heated situation. My emotions do get the best of me, and you are able to shut yours off. I do become emotional, and when I do become emotional, it's easy to discredit me. But I still went through all of those things, and when I was going through all those things, I wasn't the same emotional person that I am today. Another thing that I was going to say when you were talking, that it is a thing, is you're not a very patient person. You want everything now or 5 minutes ago, because you don't like to wait. And if somebody wants to say something, you will let them talk as long as they want to talk. For you always say 10 hours, talk all day, whatever. But in all reality, you would really like for them to get it over with so that you can talk yourself, because you already know the solution. And at least that's what it feels like for the person on the other side of the conversation.
Well, I don't know if you have any, you can add more to that if you want, but I just have to fight back a little bit on that.
Go ahead.
And that
I'm
is-
just telling you what it feels like for the other person on the other side of the
It's-
conversation.
There are moments where I feel the answer is very, very clear, but for the most part, I do like when people talk, even if I'm in an argument and I disagree with them, and maybe I'm getting annoyed and bothered by them talking. The longer they talk, the more ammunition I gather. So I love hearing people, I love
Exactly.
hearing people talk. But I think when we're dealing with high emotional conversations, that's not to say that if I'm arguing with Journey and Mom and potentially they get emotional and I'm not getting emotional, that I am correct in that situation. I could be unemotionally arguing something that's false, and you guys could be emotionally arguing something that's true and correct. And I know that everyone has a problem believing themselves over everyone else, because obviously you think what you think, and it's really hard to change someone's thoughts. Again, that's why I hate anger, because a lot of the time, that just amplifies that to 100. But even with me not getting emotional, and thinking that I'm right in a certain situation, I know from firsthand experience that with my anxiety that I had, I was convinced I was going to die, and everyone around me told me exactly what I should do, and I didn't. And had I listened to them, they gave me the answers to my problem that I would eventually find a solution to. But I was given the correct answer for years and did not listen to it and believed myself. Maybe I wasn't getting emotional or yelling, but I was still incorrect. So, even I'm just saying, I recognize that there are times where I can be wrong. And as far as what you said I'm impatient, and that is very true. And I talked about how if there's a resolution to an emotional problem, that some people may need time to cool down, but I am resolved instantly, and I definitely clash with people who need time, which is the majority of people. Yeah.
Mostly you're a good guy.
I try my hardest.
I think you're a good guy.
Well, I do think everyone at this table, it's not that you're my fiance and you're my mom. I do like to think that if, Mom, you were a terrible person, well, I would just have nothing to do with you. And obviously I wouldn't be dating you, Journey, if I didn't love you and think that you were amazing. I do think that you two people, emotionally whack or not, are the best people I've ever met. And it's not because I am conveniently placed.
Regardless of your cold as ice. Just kidding.
It's not that I'm conveniently placed in your life, so I think this thought. I think you both know that if you guys did anything wrong at all, I would hold you to the fire until we figured out why you did that. I just really wanted to say how much I appreciate both of you and how much you really mean to me, because a lot of people aren't. There's a lot of people who can't be honest with themselves, with anyone around them. There's no real relationship there. But I know for me, I talked about this before, I think, that I could walk into the room and do the helicopter in front of Journey. There's no thought of, that's where, okay, well, we're going to get vulgar here, but that's when you take your wiener.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
don't
okay,
tell me
well,
this. I don't want to
you
know.
just flip
Please
it
don't
around.
talk about
I've never.
Whoa.
Okay, well, I've never done this before. What I'm saying is,
I wanna know.
no, I don't do that. It's just an example of how there's nothing I can't do or be in front of Journey. When I walk into a room and Journey's in it, I don't feel like I'm walking into the room with a second person. I feel like Journey is absolutely my other half. She has my back. I have hers. We are one.
To ask Roger if he can do the helicopter.
We don't do that sort of thing around here. It's just an example. But, well, there you go. Learn something new every day. If you learned anything from this podcast.
Ditto.
Thank you. Easter egg there.
Double ditto. Was separate.
Wow.
Um,
Partial ditto.
Yeah.
And, I think every time I think of the example of what is the worst thing that could ever happen to me, it would be losing one of you two. And I really don't know how I could carry on.
You'll have to, because eventually
Well,
I'm going to kick the bucket.
That's also, I don't know exactly how many episodes ago, but me and Journey did a religious podcast, and I talked about how it would be so difficult for me not to transition into I'm gonna see them again. My love for them is so strong. I cannot live in this world without them. So if something happens to either one of you two, you will 100% be alive within me forever. Like I'll be talking to you guys, and
No, I just want to say,
I'll be tapping on your head all the time doing this.
because we don't have to get into a long discussion about it. Just, I love to preach that it is good to accept death and to think about death and to mentally prepare for death long before you even know or think you're gonna die. And it's okay to talk about death. I mean, don't just go randomly talking to anybody about that, but because you never know. But I just like to preach,
I wouldn't mind having a grandbaby before I die, though.
Oh, you're
we're working
Just-
on it.
Just
funny.
so,
You dropped it for a couple years and then
just so it's out there. I'm just putting it out there,
just manifesting it.
A grandbaby before I die.
Okay.
That'd be all right.
Well, on that note,
The problem with me accepting death long before it happens,
mhm.
I think it'd be easier for me if I were to die before you guys. I don't think I could accept a world where you guys were.
Right, which is what I
You
mean.
just understand that that's going to happen.
Right, that's what I mean by accepting death.
But
You think
yeah,
that you can't live without
Taylor,
someone if they die.
Journey and Scotty and Allie and
Right.
Jenna.
So yeah, because what I mean by accept, you think you can't do it, so
Hercules,
mentally
Meta.
prepare yourself for a day when it could happen. You have to be otherwise you will fall apart. You have to realize death is inevitable. Death will take everyone, and not in the bleak way. There's nothing you can do, so you might as well enjoy it.
Just make the best of now.
Yeah.
And get out the helicopter and make some.
No.
noise.
let's not do that.
Okay. Well, on that note,
Peace out, baby. Is that how we end it?
Well,
Is there a special way?
we can end it any sort of way.
I mean, I do want to thank everyone if anyone's watching this, obviously for
Yeah. Thanks for noticing.
I mean, you guys are all like, let's get the hell out of here. I'm like, what else?
more stuff to
I
say.
mean, we could talk
Oh, no,
for
I'm
another
done.
5 hours.
Not me. I'm done.
All right, well, then let's journey. If there's anything else you want to leave this topic of mental health advice and any sort of thing you'd want to say to the world.
You know,
before we-
you don't have to be like if you're an introvert like me, you don't have to say everything you're thinking to anybody.
He's gonna look for
Let her give her final goodbye.
Still.
She stopped me. I was
she was just
looking
on
for
her phone.
something.
Advice. Good advice.
Just if you're an introvert, you don't just have to go speak with anybody. Speak with someone you're comfortable to, or talk out loud to yourself, like through your problems. Because for me, well, I guess also depends on how you learn. I'm an auditory learner. I've learned. I do better with sounds, and if I like talk it out loud and I hear it said, and which not always true, depends. If I'm writing and listening, that's probably better. But so just be aware of how you learn and like use those techniques. Use a learning style. Like how do you learn things? How do you best learn things? Do you learn them best by like reading, hearing them, writing them down? But put that towards your mental health. How can you adjust up here with what you know and how you learned things? You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to study your brain. That's a better way to put that. It's okay to study your own brain and to work out little kinks and to figure shit out. It's all right. Get in there. Get in there.
Buy the book.
Mom, do you have any advice for people struggling with any sort of problem?
Yeah, call the hotline. And there, I was gonna find a number, but that's fine. You can go online. There's crisis hotlines
Google.
everywhere.
Google it.
You can Google them. You know, I'm sure chats. You can find them on
Even
Facebook.
Just,
you
even
can
just
find them.
911.
You can find them everywhere. You can find help on Twitter. You can find all you got to do is just reach out. There are millions of people just like you. And it's amazing once you reach out, and then you will find someone who probably will need you more than you ever thought. And you end up helping someone, and next thing you know, they've helped you. You didn't even realize. That's all you need to do, and buy the book. If you're worried, if you think whatever, educate yourself, learn about it, figure it out, seek help.
There are workbooks that just for mental health, like there are PTSD workbooks, there are DBT workbooks for borderline. There's so many workbooks to like.
I've done the DBT.
It just
awesome.
But basically they just teach you techniques to put towards your mental health, relaxation, soothing, confrontation. Like they just have just a way to help learn and modify your brain. Study the brain.
Are you doing the DBT?
I have it. It's hard. I've been really busy, so
the 3 different minds.
I barely touched into
Good
it.
stuff.
I got to, but
Good stuff,
I
man.
think it's busy. Michael, anything from you?
I've probably spent more alone time than anybody I know. And with that comes a lot of lonely thoughts,
Oh yeah.
darkness in the world, and I've reached out. I'm pretty open about everything. Like, I would tell a stranger everything about me. I don't really have secrets. I'm sort of thinking of, like, obviously if it's surface level something, it's probably not that bad. You get a little deeper, maybe you need to see someone, and maybe you can also afford to see someone. But I do believe there are people who can't afford to talk to a human, and there's also, they don't have any friends. And I've definitely gone on websites like Omegle and random chat rooms where I'm just looking for sort of anybody who needs someone to talk to. 99% of the time, if you go on the internet for something like that, it's sort of very surface level conversations. It's also a lot of dicks. If you've been on Omegle, you know what I'm talking about. Most guys in chat rooms, or most people in chat rooms, they are guys, and they are really only there looking for a girl to talk to. But if you're a dude or a girl who is in that boat, just wants anyone to talk to and doesn't feel like they have anyone and can't afford to talk to anybody, if you're hearing this now, then you can obviously hear me. Right, and you've obviously gotten through this entire podcast. So the only advice I could give to a person who's gotten through, solid advice, who's gotten through this entire podcast and is hearing me now, is you can call me. And you could, if you know any of these people, you could probably call Journey, and you could probably call my mom, and any one of us would be more than happy to try to help in any way possible.
Even if you just want to vent, you just need to get it off your chest, and then you're
Don't
good.
yell at me, though.
Yeah,
Don't
we
yell.
sort of have a
But
variety
just get it
here.
off your chest.
There are definitely more patient people than myself here. There are certain types of problems where you just want someone to listen, and if that's the case, you should call them.
If you want a
But
solution.
if you want advice, and most people don't because they,
I can give advice, but I'm saying if you just need to.
right. It's very hard for me to listen to people's problems and not offer
And not-
up
yeah.
anything. But yeah, if you guys, there are things you can do, and we talked about self-harm and the fact that I had my anxiety in the moment I crashed and got into a lot of pain. I was just happy because I didn't have to feel it. You have to try to find a distraction for yourself, whatever it is, something positive. And if all else fails and you're here right now, call one of us. I'll talk to you
I
forever.
I want to add, it's okay for something to be wrong if you have mental, like, if, because, like, there's a lot of people who grew up, you know, being told, like, it doesn't matter, it's in your head, get over it, basically. Like, move on, be normal. It's okay for something to be wrong in your brain, it just depends on how you handle it. You know what I mean? Like, it really, how you are and who you are, it all depends on how you handle your mental health and how honest are you willing to be with yourself. You know, you can't just deny it. It's okay for something to be wrong. Just take care of it.
Everybody's different.
Everyone's different.
All right, mother truckers.
All right.
That's it for
Well,
me, dude.
thanks for joining in. Thank you for being
for
here.
having me.
High five.
Got through it.
Whoop whoop.
All
All
right.
right.
Peace out.
Bye.